Now, today it's also saying I'm live, and I'm going to believe that it's telling me the truth, unlike yesterday. Apologies to you video viewers. YouTube just blew it. And even though it told us we were live, didn't stream for 30 minutes and didn't record those 30 minutes. So my wife works at YouTube. What are you going to do? You ready, Justin?
Oh, yeah.
Here we go.
The Daily Tech News Show with Tom Merritt is powered by Patreons like you. From 5 cents to $50, every contribution helps Tom and company produce fresh episodes of essential tech news. To learn more and support the show, visit patreon.com/acedetect. And thanks for listening.
This is the Daily Tech News for Thursday, October 29th, 2015. I'm Tom Merritt. Joining me today, Mr. Justin Robert Young, host of Politics, as well as Night Attack and many others.
I've launched a new podcast. It is covering the horse race of politics from a fairly detached point of view. You can check it out on iTunes and SoundCloud. But what I'm really here for is to bring you guys the straight dope tech news that you deserve as American.
That could be misinterpreted. I almost tried to split it up, that old joke. I bring the straight, you bring the dope, but then that could go a whole lot of, I'm not going to do that. We're not going to do that.
Good idea.
We're going to do the headlines. As promised, Nintendo announced the first smartphone game, Miitomo, Miitomo, its first smartphone game. Game will have customizable Mii avatars that can communicate with other Mii avatars, emphasizing social interaction. They compare it to Tomodachi Life on the 3DS in the Verge article. If you're shy, the Mii avatars can handle making conversation automatically for you. Miitomo is free, but will sell in-game purchases for character add-ons. And the first game is not coming until next year. They were expected to launch this by the end of 2015, but Miitomo won't release until March 2016. Nintendo plans to release 4 additional mobile games after that by March 2017, which The Verge says will be traditional paid games. Thanks to Guy from Trinidad and JamFat both for submitting stories about this announcement in the subreddit. So what do you think? Nintendo's big move to mobile.
Well, it's interesting that they go in a very soft, social, gender, non-gender line friendly kind of game. It's not an action adventure game. It's not something that is a traditional puzzle game, which has a lot of female adoption traditionally in terms of that gender breakdown. This is something that is obviously youth-oriented. It is a communication platform, which is also very interesting. We've seen gigantic adoption and willingness to try new platforms from youth on mobile phones to talk to each other and communicate each other on different kinds of interesting ways. It's very, very interesting that this is where they look to go with their first game. What I'm curious about is why announce it when you're not going to launch it for another 5 months.
Took the words right out of my mouth. They have been so good at not over-teasing their smartphone games and building up unreasonable expectations. Everyone's kind of wondering if they announce this in March and it comes out the next day. I think a lot of people are excited to try it out. Now that you're going to have 5 months to think about, okay, so it's essentially a big version of the Wii startup screen.
Yeah.
I mean, they can build that excitement back up, and I'm sure they will, but it does seem like an odd choice.
And it's also odd that it's not a big thundering IP, right? That it's not a Mario, that it's not a Zelda, that it's not a Mario Kart or something like that, which we've already seen clones of from all manner of Angry Birds and stuff like that.
I could think of all kinds of reasons to say this is the Miitomo, which will integrate with our Zelda game and our Mario, something like that, and announce them all at once. But again, the timing of the announcement's weird.
Yeah, I totally agree. Reuters reports Alphabet has announced agreements with Indonesian telcos, Telkomsel, Axiata, and Indosat to bring internet by balloons to Indonesia. Project Loon uses solar-powered balloons at 5,000 meters to deliver 10 megabytes internet through radio signals to ground-based antennas. Alphabet will deploy hundreds of balloons over Indonesia in 2016. Alphabet's Mike Cassidy also told the BBC that Project Loon plans to launch more than 300 balloons worldwide next year to make a continuous string around the world in the southern hemisphere.
It's Project Lunacy. They've also been talking deals with Sri Lanka, Argentina, a few others, and they're definitely going to launch this in the southern hemisphere. But it's become a race to see who can bring that rural internet. And I know when we say rural here in the United States, a lot of times you think, Illinois farmland or something like that. We're talking about in Indonesia, hundreds and hundreds of islands that make it very difficult to string infrastructure. Balloons floating over that can suddenly make that a lot more possible.
On a larger level, and obviously this is something that Google or Alphabet can really sink their teeth into and try out different technologies and see where where things are feasible with these developing countries in the southern hemisphere. But the larger picture here is internet and data as a commodity, right? Like the idea that we can see different and new pathways to everybody connecting for cheaper prices, and specifically something that could, even if it's low capacity, not a lot of data, 10 megabytes, not really it's very usable for mobile, or for, just what people get guaranteed in their homes. It's interesting to look at solutions that don't involve digging holes in the ground, and therefore, and America and many of the Western world requires regulation and stuff like that. This is very interesting.
Well, and in Indonesia, it requires a lot of cooperation with the government. Let's not pretend it doesn't. But 10 megabits per second is about what you're going to get from your LTE service. So, think that. And pat on the back to both of us for avoiding cloud services puns. BuzzFeed reports that Siri is coming to Apple Music on Apple TV, turning it into a voice-controlled music player. Siri already is going to work for finding movies and TV shows on the latest Apple TV. But starting early next year, you can pick up your Apple remote, say, play Taylor Swift's 1989 again, and Siri will do it for you.
Even in your wildest dreams, Tom. This
we're out of the woods.
Is something that... when Apple announced the new Apple TV, it felt to me like they were going after the Alexa market, or going after the passive controlling a bunch of different things, that this is their soft play into, hey, you want to know what? We can add elements of we can control your lights, and we can control all this other stuff that, and make it, put it in the Apple ecosystem. So this does not surprise me. And it is kind of a continued victory for Apple on Siri, which, much maligned when it's launched, is incredibly usable on the Apple Watch and the iPhone, and has continued to become more and more reliable.
Other side of this story, though, is why didn't you launch with it? And when I pick up my Apple TV at the store tomorrow, why can't I use it to control music right now? Why do I have to wait until next year?
You got to wonder if is that a rights thing? Is that something that they got to clear?
No, it's a programming thing, I'm pretty sure.
So it just wasn't where it needed to be? It couldn't interact with the database?
I mean, what they wanted to do is you'd be able to say, show me some action-adventure movies starring Ryan Gosling, right? And there's some machine intelligence behind that. And so they just hadn't got the Siri working as well with the music catalog as they had with the television catalog.
And I guess but that's a huge thing, though, because they do want to keep that momentum. They want Siri to be thought of as a reliable way to interact with your devices, and not the buggy mess that it was initially when it started. Twitch has launched a new landing page dedicated to non-gaming, quote-unquote, creative content at twitch.tv/creative. The page features hashtags for drawing, art, Photoshop, painting, cosplay, programming, cooking, and more. The company says creative content has been growing 40% month over month, twice the site-wide average. Twitch is promoting the launch by streaming all 403 episodes of Bob Ross's The Joy of Painting, starting at 5 p.m. Eastern Thursday. Look at all those fluffy little creative contents.
This is going to be our main discussion topic, but it mostly because of the the strange, torturous journey of Justin TV to Twitch gaming to fluffy little clouds streaming live to this afternoon. It just makes me, I'm looking over at my grandma's painting that I have hanging over there. I should have put it behind me, that she made because she watched Bob Ross all the time and got into painting, and thinking, wow, what would she think of this being on Twitch? And how would I explain what Twitch is to her?
Yeah, and how would you tell her how to turn off the comments?
Yeah, exactly. Let's save that for the discussion. But a cool, I think, a very positive and cool and interesting thing. But I got thoughts. ZDNet reports that OnePlus announced an invite will be coming to you. Maybe invites are coming for its new OnePlus X to start rolling out November 5th. The OnePlus X has a 1920 by 1080 441 pixel per inch display, 13 megapixel main camera, micro USB port, 2 SIM slots. You can either do dual SIM if you're in one of the markets where that's popular, or the manufacturer can make one that's 1 nano SIM and 1 micro SD card. Runs OnePlus's Oxygen OS. That's based on Android 5.1.1, but it's OnePlus's own spin, kind of like the Mi UI. Black Glass Onyx Edition is going to sell for €269 in Europe, £199 in the UK, and $250 in the US, while a limited edition ceramic model will be available for roughly €100 more.
Do we want a ceramic phone?
I mean, for €100 more? No.
That was the lost version of the Man with No Name trilogy, you know, for
€100 more. You know, ceramic, we think of, especially because we were just talking about Bob Ross, I think we're both thinking like fragile ceramics, but don't forget ceramic tiles are used on space shuttles and stuff like that. So,
Yeah. I just think that they should promote it with the clip from the movie Ghost, and it should be Demi Moore making a ceramic phone. Yeah. Samsung reported 51 point. Is that an old reference? That makes it. I mean, it's probably really.
We were just talking about Bob Ross, man. Everything, all of it's good now.
Yeah, this is straight out of 1991. Samsung reported 51.68 trillion of revenue, up 8.9 over last year, with profits of 6.39 trillion won, up 82%.
That's 7.39 trillion.
7.39 trillion won, up 82%, he corrected himself, in spite of splitting the contract to make the A9 chip with TSMC. Samsung's semiconductor business powered the company with nearly half of the profits for the quarter. Its display panel business also was a strong contributor. Samsung also has devices businesses which increased its revenue but saw profits decline due to lower prices.
I think Samsung should get out of that phone business. Seems like it just loses them money.
It is amazing where that's come, too. Like, you know, this is something that 5 years ago we were talking about, the very idea of Android being permanently altered if Samsung decided to really fork that OS and make it their own. It was like the greatest worry amongst the Android ecosystem, and now I don't think that what you said, I mean, you certainly said it in a humorous way, but it's not that much of a joke to Samsung. You know, why are they still building these? Why are they trying to keep up with the Jobses in Apple and make these high-end devices that are getting crowded out of the market and aren't making them the money that it once did?
And when people say, "Oh, Samsung's going to die," I laugh and I decide not to reply to their comment on the forum that I'm looking at, because Samsung's not going to die. Samsung's got very strong divisions. Samsung phones, on the other hand, if you clarify yourself, I still don't think it's going to die. But that is a business that is very challenging to be in right now if you want it to be a growth business.
Yeah, because it's a very mature market, and they don't have a ton to differentiate themselves anymore.
When the US FCC passed new open internet guidelines, many worried it would discourage investment. So John Brodkin at Ars Technica took a look at the first quarter since the implementation of the rules in June to see where we are. Here's a sampling. You should definitely go read the article if you're interested in this. Comcast increased capital expenditures 12.8% compared to the prior year as of September 30th. Time Warner Cable increased capital expenditures for the year. Year over year, Q3 remained even, though. Verizon Wireless capital investment is up 8.4%. T-Mobile is flat year over year. AT&T up slightly, just a little bit year over year. And Sprint hasn't reported their numbers yet. They won't do that until next Tuesday. So overall, the first quarter under open internet guidelines showing moderate to robust investment. We'll see if that continues. And of course, if you're one of the people who still believes that it's a drag on investment, you can always argue that they might have invested more had they not had these guidelines to deal with. But it's an interesting look at this that Broadcom did over there.
And it is ultimately so hard to understand, what wasn't spent, right? And you can it is the source of argument amongst economists, until the end of time. But at the same time, this is such a tangled issue, on whether or not their arguments pan out is almost, kind of, I think, missing the boat on, what exactly these regulations do, how much these companies have held back investment and fought against, investing more or smarter technology. So it's very interesting to watch. Samsung will begin selling its 18-inch tablet, the Galaxy View, on November 16th in the U.S. $599 gets you 32 gigs of storage, 802.11ac Wi-Fi, 2 gigs of RAM, and a 1.6 gig processor and micro SD card slot. An LTE version is coming, but the carrier is yet to be announced.
18-inch tablet, also known as a small table.
This.
I don't want to get too much into picking on a particular reporting of this, but The Verge made a big deal about the $599 price tag on this as being too expensive. And I don't know that I agree. I feel like if you're going to buy an 18-inch tablet, I think the bigger question is, what are you going to use it for? There are uses, but I don't see them as being massively adopted. But $599 seems like a perfectly reasonable price for that.
What I think people are missing with the massive tablets is that and you see this a lot in the Bay Area, that tablets, although maybe not the consumer devices because of the lack of ubiquitous mobile data in the way that we have them on our larger phablet kind of phones, are gigantic when it comes to non-consumer uses. Like, there is almost every place that I go to has a iPad or some kind of branded tablet as a cash register.
Yeah.
A lot of people, I wouldn't be shocked if you saw a lot of these larger tablets in the middle of tables at restaurants. So 2 people across from each other could each look at a menu and hit buttons. This is, there's a tremendous opportunity for these larger things that I think we're kind of missing because we're just thinking, why do you need an iPad or a consumer tablet?
I went to an event last night. And instead of going to the normal lobby and signing in at the kiosk they have there, they had like a dozen tablets out, which was very smart. Like, we're expecting a big crowd. We can handle a lot more people with a bunch of tablets.
Yeah.
Yeah. DJ Sakani wanted us to mention the stern warning Google Chrome engineer Ryan Sleevey gave Symantec over the issuance of browser security certificates. If you hadn't seen this, Symantec was caught issuing thousands of unauthorized transport layer security, TLS, certificates, and as a result fired several employees. So as of June 1st next year, June 1st, 2016, Chrome has warned it will require Symantec to publicly log all certificates it issues or risk Chrome flagging sites with Symantec certificates as potentially unsafe, which would essentially ruin the market of anyone wanting to buy a certificate from Symantec. Sleevey also expects Symantec to undergo a point-in-time readiness assessment and third-party audit, something that certificate authorities usually only do to become certificate authorities in the first place. And the article at Ars Technica calls it getting called into the principal's office, essentially.
Yeah. How often do we see stuff like this? That
Very rare. Yeah.
I mean, because it seems like this is somebody's full-time job to look into these kinds of issues and talk to these companies behind the scenes. But the going public with something like that seems very, very, very rare. It's not something that I remember reading about.
It's a symptom of a breakdown in communication. I mean, the story behind the story here a little bit is that Symantec originally said, yeah, well, okay, we see some weirdness, Google, you're right. There's 23 weird certificates. We're going to look into this. It affects you and Chrome and a couple other people. And Google said, nah, you keep looking. And they found thousands. And so the fact that they didn't even do the first response well, it implies that there's a little bit of a breakdown in trust and communication going on here.
Sony continued good financial news buoyed by profits from its gaming, sensor, and semiconductor units and favorable foreign exchange rates. Its sensors, which has been the cash cow for Sony, saw an increase in profit 29% year over year, and semiconductors saw a profit rise of 15%. Meanwhile, gaming saw a profit rise of 10%. That outweighs drops in profitability from the mobile and financial divisions.
Now, I held back some of what I wanted to say about the Samsung story because it applies to Sony as well. We're seeing two companies struggling, Sony much more than Samsung, let's be fair, in making mobile profitable. Sony's had a bigger problem since they took it away from the joint venture with Ericsson, really making Sony phones work. And a lot of people think it's going to go to the way of Vio, where Sony just spun Vio out. They said, we're not in that business anymore. And I think it is part of what may be a larger trend of companies who saw telephones, cell phones, as a profitable expanse of their portfolio, realizing that this is a startup game now. This is a commodity game, and it's not something that's going to bring in the bucks and growth that it did. And so you see Sony and Samsung maturing into parts makers, essentially, where they can make lots of money off sensors and chips.
Although Sony, for as troubled as they can be in other issues, they do have one big famous area in which they are doing well, which is gaming, and console gaming is something that, on the other end, its big competitor here in the United States is the Xbox in the battle for the living room, and that is the division that you've heard now for 2 years that Microsoft might want to spin off because it doesn't mesh with where they are looking to go. So good on Sony for making, seeing.
Yeah, and I won't make too much out of this, but being successful in game consoles right now is not a guarantee of future success.
No.
I may be wrong about this. Game consoles may find their niche as basically your living room computer. It's very likely that they will, and Sony can take advantage of that if it happens. But it could also end up being, hey, I was #1 in PDAs in 2005. Oops, or #1 in GPS devices. Game consoles may come under threat from other devices. I'm not saying it's going to happen one way or another. That's a questionable arena, though. It's not a guarantee.
And the big question is, we are kind of at the end of the super hotness, new baby a period for both the Xbox One and the PS4. After this Christmas, we now get into the reduced priced console, and you better hope that you have the games that keep people wanting to come and adopt your platform, because everybody who wants it, unless they're just they're 5 and turning 6 and they're able to beg their parents for one, they're going to kind of have it already, and it's going to start to be old hat.
And Nintendo looks like it's going to accelerate its console cycle. It's not going to ride the Wii U as long as it rode the Wii. So that may put some pressure on people, or it may not. We'll see. That, my friends, are the headlines. Thank you for submitting your suggestions. It really does help us. Please do submit your votes. Let us know what you want to hear. If something gets 5 votes in our subreddit these days, that's not a lot. That's not enough to pay attention to. So get in there and vote on the stories you want to hear us talk about. dailytechnewsshow.reddit.com. And that is a look at the headlines. All right, man. Twitch TV, Justin TV, founded in the mid-2000s, was all about streaming because it could be done. Then it noticed, hey, you know what? That gaming section of ours is really taking off, and they turned it into Twitch. They basically spun it out. It was kind of a controversial decision at the time. Like, really? You're spinning the just gaming? And of course, as we all know, that was exactly the right thing to do. They ended up closing down Justin TV, sold Twitch to Amazon for millions. It is one of the most successful websites out there. It's certainly the premier gaming streaming video site in existence. And it's now doing the same thing that Justin did, which is saying, hey, we've noticed that a bunch of people are doing this and it's pretty popular. The creative side, the artists, the painters, the makers, cosplay people, have been growing their viewers at 40% per month, while Twitch on average grows at a very healthy 20% a month. So it seems like a smart thing to do to say, well, we're going to create a place for them under Twitch and see how it goes. But Justin, you know as well as I do that Twitch has been also very much about cracking down on people if they don't do gaming content.
Yes. Now, are you ready for this, Tom?
I'm ready.
I have a disclosure to make.
I was born ready.
My wife does a Twitch creative stream cooking and has been for the past month or so. It is very successful so far and popular. So please take my bias for what it is. And that hopefully can add to the rich tradition of wife disclosures here on this show.
Especially regarding streaming video companies.
So here's what's interesting, is that what Twitch realized is that the medium is the message. It wasn't just the jack of all trades, hey, here's a live streaming solution, because that will always be a commodity. And we know, because we've traveled between, as independent content creators who love to live stream and love to connect with a live audience, we've migrated from the Ustreams to the Justin TVs to the Google Hangouts. And eventually we wound up rolling our own because that was just what was easier for us. What Twitch realized is that you can't just have it be a thing. It's got to be the place for this getting streamed. And so that's why gaming blew up. Gaming blew up because they grew a culture around that product. It was involved in the chat, in the emotes, in the fact that there's trend pieces being written about the Kappa icon.
And it was recognizing a culture and fostering it. When you say they grew it wasn't like they grew it from nothing, right? They noticed a culture and like, let's lean into that.
Yes, of course. Like it was there. People loved gaming. People loved watching other people game, and people loved YouTube tutorials about gaming before Twitch blew up. But what it did do is create its own culture. It is now distinct. It is something that they have their own in-jokes. They have their own, part of the motivation for people to get partnered and to get bigger on Twitch is to have your own emotes. And then being able to show them off in other chat rooms and people coveting them, everything kind of drives itself internally. What is fascinating here is we are now seeing that Twitch, that their grand plan is, hey, we're always going to get push on, well, is this exactly gaming content? Is it enough to talk about games? If you're doing a podcast about talking about games, how much of that needs to be game content? If you go on a 15-minute digression into whether or not Bernie Sanders will be president, is it up to the Twitch mod to yank your stream because that's not gaming content?
And Scott Johnson and Brian Ibbett have fought this when they were doing the morning stream, talking about not gaming, and some mod came in and threatened to shut him down.
Yeah, absolutely. So where you are now is understanding that there's always going to be pushback, and by keeping those boundaries, which has led to the success of that site, you need to sanction different fiefdoms. There have been people who do great creative content, including a friend of our group, Viking Lass, who does an amazing art stream on Twitch Creative and has for months. Domestic Dan is another cooking streamer that has done particularly well on Twitch Creative. This is something that is vital for the continued expansion of Twitch. Twitch will always succeed until there is some game-changing kind of technology, or YouTube gaming continues to do. If that does really well, then you'll see some competitive, market for the game streamers. But for Twitch to continue to build outward, they need to build these fiefdoms. This is crucial.
But it's a different way of going about building them, because in the past, and what Justin TV did, and this is probably where they decided to learn and do something different, you would say everybody can do whatever, and then we'll see what takes off. And what Twitch has done here is said, no, you're doing gaming. At least has to be connected to gaming. But then noticed that, hey, there's some people who do gaming who then switch to cooking or painting or something. And because they do gaming sometimes, we're fine with that. We're not going to try to do a heavy hand. But we notice that those particular creative ones are taking off. So let's loosen the restrictions a little more. Let's say, hey, those of you who were never into gaming but want to do a painting or cooking or robotics making channel, you're welcome here now. We've changed our policy to specifically allow you. Now, the interesting thing I wanted to look at was the new rules of conduct, because they say the process of creating an entirely original work or original content that could be copyright protected. I think that's an interesting way of going about it. In other words, they're trying to say you can't do public domain remix with Creative Commons here. They're saying it has to be your original work that you could claim a copyright on. Broadcasts that involve replicas or derivative creations, remix stuff, of other copyright holders' content may be subject to takedowns by a rights holder. So they're being very strict about this. And they're also saying performances will be allowed as long as they're about original works. Broadcasts that focus entirely on performance of pre-existing material are not permitted. So that said, is basically like, look, you have to be doing something. You have to be creating something. You have to be showing something, and that's fine. They call it tangible, and then they say a song is an example, and a song is not tangible, but they're basically saying you have to be creating an end product that's yours to do it. We're narrowly defining it that way. But then they specifically call out cooking, PC building, showing your Twitch broadcast setup, furniture hacks. As long as you're not just assembling a piece of IKEA, but you're modifying it some way, that's allowed. Model making. Those are the things that they specifically in the rules of conduct say, yes, these are examples of things you can do.
That you can do. Now, not listed there, DJing, right? Or let's say you're performing a play that normally you have to buy the rights for, even if you're a high school, you got to buy the rights to Peter Pan to do it. This would be not allowed. This would be just replicating a pre-existing work, even though those are understood artistic avenues.
I wonder if we could do this show on Twitch Creative. That's the thing. That was not that I want to, but would it qualify? Because we're not creating anything original except for a podcast. And if they call a song a tangible product, is not a podcast episode tantamount to a song, as the Bard said? I don't think that's what they're after, though. They really want people to be making things on camera.
Here's what they want. They want their community, they want their culture to sanction it before they give it the official blessing.
Well, and what's weird about that is, so therefore I have to do something else on Twitch first, and to do something as a sideline before that sideline can get popular enough to be accepted.
Absolutely. But you want to know what? It's an awkward dance, to be sure, right? But that's what allows them to keep a definition, to not just become the big blob of a bunch of people who don't talk to each other. What the benefit for a streamer inherent into coming to Twitch is that I'm now going to learn a new language, and I'm going to learn how people interact with each other. I'm going to learn the customs. I will have a benefit because it's easier to collaborate. It's easier to communicate with other chat rooms. A lot of people hop all day from one place to another, and now they can go and experience a creative stream. If some of those creative streamers decide to start streaming podcasts and it's about what they're doing.
Well, Scott Johnson's doing it, right?
What was that?
Scott Johnson's doing that.
Scott Johnson's already doing it. If that becomes in Twitch culture, again, but that's the thing, is Scott still, like many of us, we do what we do for our audience, that also streams on Twitch. That's not the same as people who live on Twitch and
natives
are of Twitch culture.
Yeah.
If they start to do podcasts, either via the gaming thing or the creative thing, I wouldn't be shocked if there was a live podcast creation channel that they wanted to launch. But it would happen the community first.
Last thing before we get off this topic, do you think that if the creative sub channel here, the sub page, gets popular enough and grows large enough, it's got a ways to go. It's only got 200,000 creators right now compared to what you've got 1.7 million broadcasters in general on Twitch. But let's say it starts to get up there. Should Twitch spin that out and make a creative channel that's separate from Twitch on its own, like they did Twitch with Justin TV?
I don't think so. Only because unless that culture became walled off from the gaming channel, then maybe. Then maybe you start to call, that creative or to Twitch creative. I don't know. I'm not good at names. So maybe, but I think again, what they have learned and what I believe Twitch's end all be all is, what does the community want? If this element of the community wants to be separate, they will think about that. If it is better because there is just a natural flow between people who want to watch twitch.tv/fakegamergirl cook vegan food and then go watch Man vs. Game play Overwatch, and that's what they like to do, then that is what they will continue to do, is tether them together.
Yeah, and I think that's the really interesting thing here is my instinct is you should make things open. And so the idea of restricting it like Twitch does rubs me the wrong way. But what trumps that is what you've been saying is, yeah, but they're doing it because that's what their community wants. And so they're adapting to what their community wants. They're not keeping it restricted. They're listening. And I think that's an important point. Our pick of the day comes from Fur. It's a small thing, but he said, when Microsoft included the Starfield screensaver in Windows XP, as a science fiction fan, I loved it. I've dragged it forward to newer versions of Windows, and they had it before XP even, but now I don't need to. There's a modern graphics accelerated version available at this website, trimcore.cz. Now listen, folks, we have not vetted this website, so caveat emptor, or visit mtor, caveat visitor. Anyway, be careful. But Fur swears by it, says it looks better than the XP version, and on a machine with a good GPU, the number of stars you can pack on the screen while the animation remains smooth is amazing. So it might be worth checking out.
At your own risk.
Send your picks to us. Feedback at dailytechnewsshow.com. You can find my picks at dailytechnewsshow.com/picks. Got a call from Big Jim. We were talking about SingPost, the postal carrier in Singapore, creating a mall where you can order things to be mailed to you using SingPost, and how brilliant of a marriage inconvenience that was. Big Jim says, hold on, I know something that sounds very similar to that in my own arena.
Hey, Tom and Justin, Jenny and Roger, and all my friends in chat realm. It is I, Big Jim, talking to you from a beautiful sunny morning here just outside my offices in Westchester, Ohio. I wanted to call in and talk about a show item from yesterday with Scott and Patrick with regard to the Singapore Mall being run by SingPost. Now, this is a mall where you can go in and actually see items, and then the Singapore Post is actually going to mail them to your door. This is not really a new concept. We actually have these here in the United States in limited areas. Specifically, what it made me think of was foreign trade zone locations. Now, in some foreign trade zone locations, you can actually go in and peruse items. They haven't necessarily been imported into the United States yet because they either have high duty value or there's restrictions on bringing them in or something a little bit nutty. But they do exist. I was in one in Miami, Florida a couple of weeks ago. It's a very interesting area where you can go in and look at something, and if you decide, yep, this is what I want to buy, then you can buy it, and that's when they import it in the United States, and that's at the point that they pay the high duties and taxes. Is this something that's going to be the wave of the future? Is it something that's in the past because now we have Amazon? Possibly, but I think we'll see a little bit more of this, but not a huge amount. But that's just my 2 cents. I'm just outside of Westchester, Ohio. I'm Big Jim.
So Big Jim's describing something specifically meant for import-export, but it is an interesting parallel. I tend to think this could be the kind of thing that you would see Amazon getting involved with at some point.
Yeah, no, I think it's entirely possible.
Put in some lockers, have a showroom. I mean, it's just a showroom. We used to have a JCPenney catalog store in my hometown. It's not much different from that. And Chris from sunny St. George, Utah, talked about how 30 years ago he was sent to Singapore on a business trip, and he remembers just how expensive it was to have a car there. And he says, you know, I don't know how much it's changed over the last 30 years, but if you're in a place where owning a car is as expensive as it was then, this idea of going to a mall where you can just have everything mailed to your house could be even more appealing.
But at the same time, how much of that is, rectified by the Ubers and Lyfts of the world? I mean, that's how I got, when I was in Singapore 2 years ago, that's how I got around was,
I think it's the convenient. I think the fact that we have people who showroom now, right? You go to a Best Buy, you look around, you pick stuff up because you want to see it in person. There is that part of you that just wants to see the thing. That's why people go into Apple stores. That's why Apple stores actually are designed. That's why Microsoft opened their new flagship store. In that kind of world, this situation where they're like, avowedly, this is a showroom for you to see the thing, and hopefully you'll buy it from us here and have it sent to you because that's more convenient and cheaper. Alan wrote in and said, I think that given, as you say, gaming will drive a lot of the initial VR experience, I think it makes sense that VR will follow video games in terms of adaptation through console versus PC. Kind of makes sense that people looking for a plug-and-play experience will prefer a console, while people who want to squeeze every last bit of performance and customization out of their system will use a PC, much as they do in video gaming. I think that non-VR video gaming has improved for most games, that you don't need a decked-out PC to have a good time anymore. There was a time where people would scoff at the idea of a gaming laptop. But VR looks like it will push PC gamers to the technological edge again. I think that was always one of the things that pushed people towards consoles for gaming instead of PCs. It's interesting that you guys only touched on the relationship between frame rate and latency. I'd be interested in knowing what the frame rate was that Patrick was getting, because latency can cause that nausea sometimes. And so latency would seem to be much more important than frame rate when you're talking about VR.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the problem when we get into these topics are, what will that look like? What's the difference between, the PC VR experience and what we would think of as the console VR experience, since the entire market is so tinkery still. It's still, like hinting at retail ready.
Yeah, and I think that you will see a breakdown very similar to consoles versus PC gaming. I think Alan's right, where people who want to squeeze every last bit of performance are more likely to maybe want to buy an Oculus or an HTC Vive with a tie-in to Steam, to a Steam box, than they would the Sony PlayStation VR. But people who are blessed and happy using their PlayStation 4 are going to jump right to the PSVR because it fits right into their ecosystem.
But I think the one thing that we were kind of skipping over, and what we know has already happened in video gaming, as we traditionally define it, is that like video gaming had to prove itself before we could have a splintering. We are still in a proving ground for VR.
Yeah.
Like we've yet to have the moment where we all realize, wow, VR is great, and now I have opinions on exactly what I value in it.
That's good. That's a really good point. We don't know, as he asks, like, is latency still better than frame rate, or is frame rate becoming more important because the latency is not an issue? Those are the technical questions. The other questions are, what do I want to do with it? Do I want to play games all the time, or do I want to play games sometimes and watch movies, or is there some other virtual experience like walking around on Mars that becomes the thing that I want to do? And that makes
part of that HTC Vive demo that people have raved about is painting and creating art. And that's the thing. Will the HoloLens and the Magic Leap just move past all of these headsets, and we'll wonder why we were ever interested in any of them to begin with? Yeah, I mean, certainly that scrappy company out of Plantation, Florida, Magic Leap, it's the most fearsome company that nobody knows anything about.
A little bit more every day. Just a little bit more. Speaking of Florida, Justin Robert Young is partially out of Florida. Not straight out of Florida.
Proud graduate of South Plantation High School in
There you go. And you can find more of Justin Robert Young everywhere on the internet if you look hard enough. Where should they look first?
Twitter is the grand clearinghouse of everything that I do. You can go there, and if you do, then you will find my brand new podcast, politicspoliticspolitics.com. You can go to politicspoliticspolitics.com to find all the new episodes, including I think it's just up on my SoundCloud now. It'll be up on the site and on iTunes and all the RSS feeds later today. But I did a full 2-hour plus live running commentary with the Republican debate. If you have not caught it, or you are that much of a political wonk that you want to watch it again, but this time with snarky commentary, then that is for you. Otherwise, you can just check out the general show, which is a weekly recap of the political horse race for the presidency in 2016 with a very nonpartisan, I'm a fan of as I've said before, the horse race of the political arena. I'm not really a candidate guy. In fact, I love the horse race so much. I wish the candidates were actual horses and they defecated in public during live events, and the lame ones were shot.
BoJack Horseman in 2016 is what he's trying to say, folks. He's not a man. He's a horse. Hey, thank you for making this show possible. DailyTechNewsShow.com/support. Our next milestone goal is a 6th day of Daily Tech News Show. So if you're already a supporter and maybe you're like, I could do $2 instead of $1 a month, or if you haven't supported the show and you're willing to give us $1, please do. We'd love to get Peter Wells on board with an Australian based version of the show every Sunday/Monday, depending on your hemisphere. Go to dailytechnewsshow.com/support for that. Our email address is feedback@dailytechnewsshow.com. You can give us a call, 512-59-DAILY. That's 512-593-2459. Listen to the show live Monday through Friday, 4:30 p.m. Eastern at alphageekradio.com, and visit our website, dailytechnewsshow.com. Back for a classic Friday with Darren Kitchen and Len Peralta tomorrow. Talk to you then.
This show is part of the Frog Pants Network. Get more at frogpants.com.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.
BoJack.
Boom.
Kaboom.
And boom goes the dynamite.
It certainly does.
Happy little cloud service.
Yep.
That's good.
I love that. I kind of, that just wins.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
That's just one of those days where that's just going to win.
Yeah. Agreed. All right, I got a Halloween TBT here.
What is
My
that?
Halloween TBT. Gotta make it big to really see it.
Wait, is that a Winnie the Pooh outfit?
It's me wearing a Winnie the Pooh outfit in 2nd grade.
How come you're wearing a headband?
It's like the mask that Pooh, I guess, I don't know why.
Well, Winnie the Pooh doesn't wear a mask.
Yeah, maybe in this costume he did. I don't know. It was the last time I wore a big costume like this because it was very uncomfortable.
It actually reminds me, I gotta head down to the Army Navy surplus in Alameda I need to get my Fidel Castro costume. I realize it's the easiest costume. I just need to get this stuff.
So you're going with a tribute costume, huh?
With a what? With a tribute?
He's not long for this world, I would expect. So
That's
listen, man. The Miami Herald has had the Fidel Castro obit ready to run for pretty much my entire adult life, and there's a solid chance he will outlive all of us.
He's like hitting 90, isn't he?
Doesn't matter. He's sitting on, he's Ra's al Ghul. If there's one Ra's al Ghul in the world, it's Fidel Castro.
I bet
he
you
is 89.
He probably has a partial state of suspended animation when he goes to sleep.
I wouldn't doubt it. There's literally nothing about Fidel Castro that would surprise me. He has been a very interesting specter in anybody's life growing up in South Florida. There's always a very strong opinion about Fidel Castro permeating here.
I wonder if his brother ever dresses up like him.
Raul?
Yeah, he just pretends like he's his brother.
He doesn't look, because Fidel Castro was always, he was the big strapping one. Raul's a little schlubbier.
No, I mean, it's like he just wears his clothes around the house and has a big bushy
just
beard
for
kind of
himself.
Lets a cigar hang out of his mouth.
Castro.
For Halloween. That's probably what he does.
He does, yeah. We're going to have the same costume.
Awkward if you guys are at the same party. Doubtful that will happen. Ra's al Ghul. Ra's al Raul, more like.
Did you see a sports report here? Don Mattingly landing as the manager for the Florida or Miami Marlins for, a year until their scumbag owner gets tired of him and fires him like he does every manager.
Well, that's typical of many scumbag owners, to be clear.
Yeah. Not all scumbag owners are like bizarre art thieves as well. And
Wait now, hold on. Art thief?
I mean, he's a shady dude.
All right. Has he actually been convicted of stealing art?
No.
Okay. All right.
I'll just say he fits very well in Miami, the fraud capital of the world. Maybe not the world.
It's a, because I grew up in Illinois. Mm-hmm. Now, I grew up on the other side of Illinois from the interesting politics, but Illinois politics, mostly because of Chicago, are pretty entertaining.
Yeah.
And then I moved to Texas. And as we all know, Texas politics are very entertaining.
Oh, yes.
But man, I would sit in Austin and with friends from Illinois who were going to UT with me, former University of Illinois folks that I knew, and we would talk about Illinois politics and Texas politics and ha, and then Florida just trumped us every time with something.
It's an amazing place, Florida politics are their own bizarre little world. The weird thing about it is that Florida in general, what kind of adds that extra level of spice that makes Florida so weird is that we get all the shady grifters from everywhere else. Like when the shady grifter in Illinois and in Texas burns out all of his contacts and he's got to leave, you go to South Florida.
You'd think that would be California, which, by the way, has some pretty crazy politics of its own.
I believe we elected the Terminator as governor. I submit that evidence.
That wasn't that crazy. There were some pretty crazy shenanigans.
I mean, they get also
and Jerry Brown and Ronald Reagan.
Just, Also, now that I'm a California resident, I can say we re-elected the old governor. That's So now that Dead Kennedy song makes sense again.
I am Governor Jerry Brown. Except for soon I will be president. It's probably not.
Except he managed to offload the whole Governor Moonbeam reference.
Yeah.
This term.
Drove out that Linda Ronstadt association too.
I was at an indie wrestling show, Hood Slam, in Oakland. And all of a sudden, Jello Biafra came out and sang that song.
No kidding! Like Jello Biafra himself.
Jello Biafra himself was
That's
up
amazing.
on the middle turnbuckle singing "California Uber Alice." It was among the most surreal.
Oh, that is fantastic! California Uber Alice. That should be the state anthem, don't you think?
It's shockingly prescient.
Yeah.
Like it is. Folks, get a little culture in your life. Go look up the lyrics to California Uber Alice. This song was written, God, when?
Late 80s, I think?
No, mid-80s, was it?
Mid-80s?
I don't know. It's been so long on that decade.
Because it was not Dead Kennedys. It was Jello Biafra, right? Am I wrong?
California, no, it was the Dead Kennedys.
It was still Dead Kennedys.
Released in 1979.
Oh, 79. Jeez. Okay, I'm way off.
And the lyrics basically completely predict that that Jerry Brown is still, the governor in 2015 is hilarious. But the idea of the well-meaning hippie movement becoming its own suffocating
fascist government.
Fascist movement.
I don't know, man. If Jerry Brown's running for president in 5-10 years.
Listen, it's pretty insane. Like, the idea, just whenever anybody looks at me like I just ran over a child with my car because I threw my trash in the wrong sorting bin, I just have this flashback to California Uber Alice.
One of my favorite Jerry Brown moments when I was living in Oakland and he was still mayor of Oakland at the time, there was I guess it was a road mudslide up in the Oakland Hills.
Mm-hmm.
And you see, you're just watching the local news, live report, woman doing a stand-up, just your basic stand-up, like, oh, the road washed out, the rain here, a little bit critical of city services maybe. Into her live shot walks Jerry Brown with his dogs. He lives nowhere near there.
No.
And he just walks up. Oh, what are you doing? I was just out walking the dogs. Well, let me tell you why this really happened, and like just totally disrupts the live shot. It was amazing. An amazing piece of politics.
Dude, it was. It's so good.
You know,
Apparently, there was an updated version when Schwarzenegger was elected. California, Uber Alice, 21st Century. When Biafra was touring with the band The Melvins, and now we can just go back to the original lyrics.
Yeah, I guess I had a Jello Biafra solo album that he sang California Uber Alles on. That's why I was getting confused about the timing, because I used to listen to that in college all the time.
Yeah, it's something that I only kind of really got turned on to kind of later in life, but
Yeah, same here.
amazing.
But California politics have always been shady, like ever since it was founded.
I guess the difference between Florida and California, though, is we have a desert trying to keep people out, and Florida has a swamp trying to keep people out.
Yeah,
That's the hurdle that the shady people have to make in both cases to get in.
The problem with Florida is that everything's so transient. Like, so there's always people coming and going, so you can always be someone new.
That's kind of true in California, don't you think?
Well, California's more of a settling kind of place, right?
Really?
Like
No, California's where you go when you want to reinvent yourself into something much better.
But I guess there's almost an honesty in that more so.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's because the whole idea is that I'm going to move out there, become a star, celebrity. I'm going to do something that improves my lifestyle, or my
Silicon Valley, Hollywood.
Yeah. As opposed to,
I think even like there's a difference between. I guess what I'm trying to describe is that there's a difference between looking to reinvent yourself honestly and looking for new people to run your credit card scam.
all right.
And I think that there's plenty of those in South Florida, which of course
I can see that.
makes it as the interesting place for which I love. All right, gang, I gotta go, but I love you.
All right, gent.
All right.
Bye.
Good show.
Good show. Right? Good show. I
Well
think
done.
the hiccup is a yes.
Thank you, Ellie. His wife streams on Twitch.
I don't understand.
What don't you understand?
No, I'm trying to figure out what she says when she goes.
Oh, it's probably demon speech. That's my guess.
She floats. She's a witch.
Does she float when you give her a bath?
She cries.
California, Uber Alles. California, Uber Alles. I just want to start another podcast.
You do?
Yeah, actually I did.
The Star Wars.
Did I tell you, were you on the call when I told Jenny that?
No.
Yeah. So it's a 7-episode series called Pretend I'm Dumb About Star Wars.
Well, that one I heard, but that was
okay.
with,
That's it.
that was with Justin. Was in here?
All
Yeah.
right.
No, that's
That's
a cool idea. I like it.
That's all I'm saying.
What's up?
And if California falls into the ocean,
That will never happen.
like the
Separate
mystics
falling in the
and
ocean would
statistics
require
say
a
it will.
Land to move from underneath the entire state.
We lost Jenny.
I'm here.
What are you reading?
Oh, I'm putting in stuff if there's a PM show today for TMS.
Ah, okay. You had reading look.
Yeah.
Actually, another unique thing about California is how much of its development has been spurred by federal intervention. Like, not just the economy, but like the state was. I mean, they got the land after the Mexican-American War,
Sure.
and a lot of the
The Bear Republic Rebellion.
the Bear Republic. Originally, I read somewhere that it was originally supposed to be a pear.
What?
A pear, not a bear.
Really? Is that true? That doesn't sound true.
But when the person got the name for it and started sketching out a flag, they thought it was bear.
Which, I mean, there are bears in California, so.
Pear Republic.
Yeah. Bear is much fiercer as a name than pear.
Yeah, but there are no grizzly bears left in California.
But it's not. They're brown bears, and there were
black bears.
Black bears.
The Spanish kind of killed them all off.
No, they're black bears like down Big Sur and up northern.
That's not the bear represented in the flag.
Well, okay, so the artist took some liberties.
Well, the artist probably remembered the last bear that was still alive in the state.
Perhaps. Okay, well, that's it, folks. Glad we streamed the whole time today. I hope everything saves. We'll talk to you tomorrow.
Do, 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 do.